Hi everyone, and welcome to I guess it's the 6th episode of our More Data, More Problems series. And today we are talking about ElasticSearch, which is an open source search engine, I think built on top of Lucene, and we've been using it for a few months now. And so Nick, do you want to explain a little bit about what it is and why we chose it?
So ElasticSearch is basically a search platform. It sits on top of Lucene. It's a little newer than a computing product that we looked at called Solar. It meshed a little better with what we wanted to do. We didn't need to go too crazy. It has a slightly simpler setup time, so we can get up to speed more quickly. It uses a JSON API, so you can send it requests or HTTP and be like, hey, I want to search for this term, or index this document that has these fields. The whole thing is schemaless, so you can kind of do whatever you want. Like, you don't need to predefine what fields you want it to index. It'll just kind of figure it out. In my experience, the search has been completely blazing fast. Like, we get results back right away. Indexing is a little bit slower, though, so that's unfortunate. But it's not as bad as some things I've heard. And it's much faster for us than SQL would have been.
Okay. Is that the other thing that we looked at?
The other thing we looked at was Solar. We didn't actually try a Solar implementation.
Okay.
What we could gather, there would be about the same performance level as Elasticsearch, but more difficult to set up. And at the point, we cared more about setup than search speed.
Mm-hmm. And this works really well, you were saying, with Couch, which is the database we're using?
Yeah, so we picked Couch because we had picked Elasticsearch. You don't necessarily need to back Elasticsearch or anything because it's sitting on top of Lucene already. But you do have the option to use external data stores like CouchDB. Elasticsearch introduced a concept called the river. Basically, there's a river plugin for Couch that lets you see all of the changes that Couch has on a specific database through polling. So we use that for all of our production databases. Elasticsearch will poll when changes have been made to the Couch database. Couch sends those changes back to Elasticsearch for indexing, and everything's good to go. Yep.
Okay. And so it's supposed to be really easy to set up. Jim, did it set up right away? Like, what was the initial install like?
Yeah, it's fairly easy to set up. They provide a pretty good selection of different packages for you to use right directly on the site. So all you really need is the JDK or JRE because it has a Java dependency. We've used it internally with Ubuntu. It's been fine. Setting up the river plugin is just as easy. It's just running a command once you have Elasticsearch all set up. We've also installed it in our production AWS deployment, and they don't have a package really available or an RPM available, but there is a GitHub project. I think it's by Tavisto, if I'm not mistaken, who actually has the build script already created for Elasticsearch. So all you have to do is drop in the source, and it'll build the RPM for you, which makes it a lot easier to install it in, say, like a Red Hat distribution or with Amazon's base virtual machine image. So yeah, it's been pretty easy to set up. There's your typical configuration file in Etsy. The only thing I have noticed is that some of the configuration values on Arnold, you have to actually play with the initialization script that runs and modify those first instead. But that's really been the only hiccup so far, and that's kind of typical of some Linux packages. So it's not to be unexpected. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's probably, if you're installing it from the package, it's probably like an 8 out of 10 to install.
All right. In terms of because I know our search right now ranks on relevancy, is that like the default with Elasticsearch, or did you configure it that way, Nick?
So the default ranking is based on relevancy. We configured what fields are getting indexed. So for like a given email or a given message, there's a lot more fields than what we cared to actually have a user search through.
Okay.
So that's the configuration we had to do. So like I said, search is pretty good out of the box. One of the things ES does give you is you can really fine grain that. I can weight different fields different amounts. So if there's a field like subject that's more important to me than the body, for whatever reason, I can make that weighting happen. And it's really fast even so. You can pretty much rewrite any part of it that you need to do to get everything exactly how you want it to be. We're not using any of that now, but we could.
Gotcha. And
only thing I can add is that Elasticsearch that we failed to mention is distributed. So you can have multiple nodes in a cluster for high availability for scaling reasons, which is a pretty big deal if you're trying to scale your application like we are.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's some built-in functionality that allows you to say retain the index you created on crash, so you can just kind of pick up where you left off if the cluster happens to fall over. So they've built the architecture extremely well, especially in regards to applications you want to scale with. So just wanted to add that portion too.
Okay. And how did we initially find them? Had you just heard of them, like on a blog or something, or?
Yeah, we just did some random searching over Google to see what we could find out for doing search, actually originally on top of Hadoop.
Mm-hmm.
And basically got the takeaways that the two things we should look into most were Solar and Elasticsearch.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Is there anything else you want to say about it? Yeah.
It's pretty easy to use. API is pretty strong. It has a good query DSL. So if you do need to do something that's a little more like a SQL query, you can.
Well, I think that's all we have for Elasticsearch. So thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you in a few weeks. All right, bye.
See ya.